this week, I mean, people are probably going to know because they will have seen the title, but I can't remember if you did it on air or if it was when we were off air, but Halley mentioned to me how good Agatha All Along was, whatever the right term is for that. And I had been worried that it was super musical. And I always want to be very clear. I have no judgment for people who love musicals, and I wish I did too. Technically, I'd love to enjoy them. It takes me out of the story almost all of the time when someone just bursts into song. So that was why I hadn't made time to watch it. And thankfully, I was able to text you because you mentioned it to me one time we were recording. And then I Googled it a couple days later. And it was it is very much a musical show. And I was like, oh. And then I was like, maybe I should just ask Halley. And then you're like, not really. And now I'm like, do not always trust Google, people.
Yeah. There is music in it, and a song plays but yeah, I didn't even, when you texted me that, I was like, a musical? Of course not. And then I was like, oh, they do sing, but it's all in service. It's not a musical the way you would think of I have feelings, so I'm going to express it via song. Yes. It's one song that matters to the plot that comes back in different ways.
Totally. Yeah, and I don't think, I think you don't even hear the song in the first episode, because I think I remember texting you and being like, there wasn't even a song in the first episode. Yeah, I'm going to be good. Because if it was going to be musical, there would have been songs in the first episode.
Yeah, no, it's not like that for sure. So I'm so glad you watched it.
I loved it. So many things that we will obviously get into that I loved about it. But what was the other thing that had just passed through my mind? I don't know. It's gone. But I ended up loving it tremendously. So we will be talking about spoilers. We are going to be talking about it. And technically, if you haven't seen WandaVision, we may talk about some spoilers from that, because this technically takes place after it. So you have been warned.
Consider yourself warned. Yes, for sure. I know. I was thinking of that too, as I was thinking about our conversation. I was like, there's no way to not spoil it if we're going to talk about it. It's too woven into the fabric of the whole story. All of it. Yeah.
It's amazing.
So you came to Agatha All Along anxious about it being a musical. My side of the flip is that I, like you, having no judgment for people who like musicals, but it's not really your jam. Marvel stuff is not really my jam. And I've seen a few. I watched WandaVision. I watched, I think, the original Iron Man. I've seen some of the pieces, but as a cultural phenomenon, I've kind of let it pass me by. And that now there's too much. I'm I'm not going back and watching 154 hours of
2001.
Right. I'm not doing it. So it's just, so I was came to the show a little bit reluctant myself. I had watched WandaVision because I like Elizabeth Olsen, and I had heard so many good things about the innovative format of the show. And I saw Agatha All Along, and I was kind of I don't know, but I love Catherine Hahn. And then I think by the end of the first or second episode, I was this is one of the best. To me, it's one of my favorite things I've seen on TV in years. I loved it.
Yes, it has staying power for me. It will always be in that. I'm the kind of person who gets so stressed out saying some things in my top 10, because then I'm like, what if it's not? But the sentiment, it will stay in my top 10 forever. That is funny though, that we came to it a little apprehensive, but for separate reasons. And then both of us are like, this is amazing.
So good.
I mean, also, like you're saying, Elizabeth Olsen, though, Catherine Hahn, Aubrey Plaza, all the wonderful women.
Sashir Zamata. I mean, the stacked cast, woman front cast of Agatha All Along. Just how much did you love that too? Just
yes, that's God. What I was totally thinking about that. Yeah. Because there's obviously Teen, who is a teenage boy. But you're so aware when you're watching it that we are, I almost said in a woman's world. And then I just heard Katy Perry's terrible song that's been all over the internet. But we are in a world of all women for the most part for this
Yes.
show.
Yes.
And we won't even go near space because we don't have time.
Yeah. I'm gonna let that one bypass me, although we probably have our own episode we could talk about with what happened there.
I think we could. Oh my goodness. I don't think anything really changed for feminism or space exploration. That'll
or
be
science?
my
No.
my bottom line.
And
yeah. We just won't go near that. We're gonna have fun today and talk about covens and witchy women and wonderful writing.
Yes. I loved it. Where should we begin?
That's what I was gonna say. So I know you said you had some kind of like detailed notes, maybe about what you liked, or maybe not.
Kate, you flatter me. I did bring some notes. So I think we could like trace it story by story, but the thing that I'll say that I think we'll have to like spend some time unpacking, which is part of it too, is just how well crafted the show is, in that it's all there from the jump. And I know that that's like the beauty of a self-contained narrative of like these 10 episodes or whatever it was. But I think it was 9. I think it was like a random number.
I think it was 9.
Maybe 9 for like, I don't know. Is that like a witchy number? That would be cool if they did that. But like,
maybe it is.
But it has such high rewatch value. And I say that as somebody who's watched it like 2 or 3 times now, because you go back and you see where they've seeded all of these things that are going to pay off. And it just blew my mind as a viewer how satisfying it was to get those payoffs. And it made me think, as a writer, you know, I think we're all trying to do that, but what are the ways that we can like learn from how they did it to make our own writing more satisfying in that way? Because it was deeply satisfying. And I truly, and I think you're probably the same way, it's not impossible, but as somebody who reads a lot and watches a lot, I am very rarely as surprised by I was as some of the like earned payoffs. I don't know if we would call them twists or reveals. I know we had a whole episode about that, but like
there's definitely a twist and some huge reveals.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. I would say the
road more twist, but there's at least one that counts as a twist.
You're right. I would say the road is a twist, and then the Catherine Hahn backstory is a reveal, and they were both so satisfying and so I didn't see that, but it makes so much sense. Like at once when you get it, you don't feel cheated. You feel like, you know, and like that is so hard to pull off, and they do it twice. And I was just like,
yes,
amazing.
I agree. And when you were saying too, like what we can like even learn from a writing perspective, there's something that like when I started writing the book I'm working on right now, which I did a dog walk with like just chill ASMR sounds on. I didn't listen to a podcast. I'm a present queen. And I actually had some like breakthroughs for my like third act. So that was good. But when I started writing that was when I also started thinking about like, how do you craft a twist? Because when you're in it and you're writing it, at least what I've just realized so much is it is like so hard as the person writing it to know if like the breadcrumbs are just like glaringly obvious. Like you're like, is everyone gonna know? Which I also think, and I know a lot of authors do write for the twist, and that's cool. I don't know that I always want to completely write for just the twist either, but when I started thinking about like how do you do it, and I think for me, or like the ones that I find satisfying in either TV or books, is there has like the other things that are going on have to be just as compelling as they are. Because that's where I've landed. You need to like be so invested in the story that is still true even when the twist happens, that like then the twist, you're like, oh, I was enjoying all of this like tension and suspense or whatever so much that I hadn't even thought to like think about this aspect of story. And that is what I feel like Agatha All Along does so well too.
I think you're so right. It's that sleight of hand. It's that look at this, and then this is the other thing that's been there all along, but we didn't see it.
Yes.
Or I'm sure some people saw it, and some people who maybe knew, this was another thing, because I don't know the Marvel lore, and like I'm sure there are people who knew some of what was coming, but I did not. And I'm totally with you, and I think you put it really well, and that's really smart, is like the storyline that we're following has to be so compelling, which is what it is in Agatha too. The quests that these characters are on, the like challenges of the road, so that the question of what even is the road isn't the big question that you're as a reader worrying on. You're looking at this other stuff, and then this is what happens.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's kind of hidden within all of that, or some of what makes that part function, is like even in that first episode when Teen is like, we need to get to the road or whatever, he's saying it to her, and she's like, how do you even know it's real? It's not real.
Yeah.
And so then it kind of sets it up as a like I don't know what storytelling trope this is, but that the feeling of you're in the story and you're like, no one has believed, or this mythical thing only certain people get to experience, and we don't even know if it's real. And so then when it is real,
right,
I say in quotation marks, you're kind of thinking it's that kind of story where it's like, oh, we did find this mythical thing that has like been a part of this world for centuries or whatever. And so then you think like, oh, this is a fun story because they actually found this really rare thing.
Right.
And then what you were kind of alluding to is each episode, once they're on the road, kind of even dives into like each different characters or like the different things they've struggled with. So you even kind of are buying into this idea of like, they're growing on the road. The road helps them grow or whatever. So there's like all these things that have you so invested in thinking it's a story going that way. And then I think we also feel like maybe Agatha is a better person now too. And so the other big sleight of hand, in my opinion, is that you feel like we're maybe going to see Agatha like learn the value of friendship and like grow as a person. And so she feels more like an anti-hero maybe. And then by the end, you're like, oh, she was the antagonist the entire time. And that's such a cool flip.
That is a cool flip. Totally. And I even have thoughts among there too, where I do have some like, there's also like, one of the things I loved is that she is a villain, and they both make her compelling. And there's spots where you see her humanity, but she's never sanded down. You're never like to the end, she might throw somebody else under the bus, you know? Should we do like a brief recap of the overall structure of it So we pick up with Agatha, and I had kind of forgotten this, and then I had to like go back and look at notes. We're actually in the structure of WandaVision, right? Because this picks up right after WandaVision. So the show starts and it looks like a true crime procedural, and it's not a very good one, which is funny. I had a friend who like stopped watching the show
so much.
They do. And I had a friend who stopped watching the show because she was like, it's not good. And I was like, but that's the point. You don't like, you have to get further.
To like 20 minutes.
Yeah. And so she's like living within this true crime procedural, which becomes eventually clear that she is still under Wanda Maximoff's spell. And this is the reality that she's like the TV reality that she's living in is this like bad Nordic noir. It is so satisfying when that comes back later, when we have an episode from Teen's perspective. She meets this boy who's in her house. He's trying to steal something. In the show, she thinks he's in the true crime show that she thinks she's in, she thinks he's this villain, but he's really just a boy who's in her house because she's Agatha Harkness, the Great Witch, and he's looking for answers about who he is and all these different things that we'll find out later. But it's so rewarding. You see it, and so funny when you see an episode through his eyes, and she's like questioning him like she's, you know, the CSI detective, that you get to see the flip side of like what had been going on.
And they like make her the like messy female detective, like all
so
of the stereotypes, like her
all the
hair's
tropes.
messy, she's kind of gross, she has like I swear she has grease stains, and she's just like so gruff, and you're like, oh boy.
Totally, like has this tragic backstory, which we do come to find out is true, and but then totally,
and she's been stuck there for 3 years. That was like the
Mhm.
other thing they let us know once she realizes she's been in that world.
Right. And so she frees herself. She meets this boy who's in her house, Teen. She calls him Teen. He can't tell her who he is, which is, I think, the first thing that intrigues her. And I did a little bit of research before we got on this call. Hold on. Let me pull up. And I found some things from the showrunner.
Ooh, that's cool.
A quote about Agatha. And this was, I thought, really interesting. It's never her aim to hurt someone. She doesn't hurt anyone just for the fun of it. She's interested in two things. She's interested in what serves her, and she's interested in witchcraft, specifically enormously powerful witchcraft. And the thing that I think is so relevant about that is that that's what intrigues her with Teen, the boy, is like the second that she sees that he's under this spell that she can't break, she's like, what are you? Who are you? And like, now I'm interested.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And that also does explain the bit of saving grace that makes us still interested in Agatha near the end, is what you're saying. She's not malicious for the sake of being malicious or like hurtful because she enjoys being hurtful. She's just selfish.
Yeah, just selfish.
Like
Absolutely.
If it serves her, she'll behave however she wants, but she's also not out to just like go on a rampage for no reason.
And I think as a viewer and as a writer, that's what makes her like such an interesting character, because she cannot be slotted into any, like, she's not always going to choose to do the bad thing. She's not going to have some like turn around and choose to do the right thing. She's always going to do the thing that serves her. So she is a true renegade because you do not know what she's going to do at any given moment. And that is so interesting.
And I'm jumping way ahead, but it fits what we're talking about so well. Even in the kiss of death moment where she does kiss Aubrey Plaza's Rio to save Teen, and we're like, damn, does she actually feel bad about something? Right. And she comes back and she's like, I took a calculated risk. I thought I could maybe be a ghost. It seemed worth it. So like, it was not about him. So even there, it was like, I was like, oh, did they actually want her to grow? And then a few scenes later, you're like, oh, no.
No, totally. And I also think, so I agree with you on that. I do think she has affection for Teen for a couple of reasons. I think she like the same way that like she was more fascinated by Wanda and sort of like wanted what Wanda had. Like she was Wanda's antagonist, but she also wasn't like, she's not like, I hate Wanda and I want to take her down. No. She's sort of like interested in her. And I do think, and I was reading the same review with the showrunner, she was talking about how Agatha is a covenless witch who both sort of likes being on her own, but sort of wants a coven. And by the end of the show, she's sort of found that with Teen, even when she's a ghost. Right. And it makes me think of, there's this whole part. So, okay, so another thing we haven't mentioned, but presumably you're here because you've watched this, is there is the Ballad of the Witches Road, or what do they call it? The Witches Ballad? The Ballad. They call it the
Ballad of the Witches Road.
Yeah. And it's the thing that witches use. This is what we believe in the beginning. It's the thing that witches use to summon the road. And there is a whole digression. Agatha, so the road is supposed to be this mythological place where if you follow the road and you complete its challenges and you get to the end, you will get whatever you desire. And it's so interesting because watching it, I mean, there's so much to talk about here, Kate. We're going to be here for 17 hours. So if you complete the road,
I don't have anything for 4 hours, so
I do in an hour and a half, but we'll do it. So if you complete the road, you're going to be able to get your heart's desire, basically whatever you want. And Agatha is the only known survivor of the road. And so she is somebody not to be trusted, but she's also looked at as an expert. So the way you summon the road, and Teen wants to get to the road. That's the reason why he's come to Agatha. He has this question about who am I? And he thinks the road will help him figure out pieces of his past that he doesn't totally understand. Along the way, they draw in a bunch of a coven of different witches, including one poor neighborhood woman who doesn't make it on the road very far.
No,
who was a delight.
What is her name? The actress's name?
The actress's name.
It's the mom from that 70s show, and she's so adorable.
She's so good. She's so Deborah Jo Rupp. I don't know what part of my brain found that, but that was her name.
It did.
So they pull together this coven. They're going to get on the road. Our first clue that something is off is that Agatha seems as surprised as anybody when the road appears, which is like very subtly done. But I think you all clock it, but you kind of forget about it, or at least I did for a while. Totally. So then they get onto the road, which is sort of like an inverted version of the Yellow Brick Road, and you're met with all of these different challenges that the witches have to come together to complete. But there are certain things that happen along the road, and people look to Agatha as potentially the person who might know. And so there's a question about, if you have to complete the road, how many people have to complete the road in the coven for it to be complete? And they say one interpretation of the ballad is coven true, and Agatha says coven two. And we'll find out later that she actually does know what she's talking about in this instance. And by the end of the show, she is in a coven of two. Her and Teen. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's so good.
I know. And like, it again, because everything you just said, I didn't pick up on it, and it's like there are still like books that will surprise me a little bit, but kind of what you're saying, there's also plenty of books that I still really enjoy, but I have a few working theories, like maybe 2 or 3 working theories, and then it turns out to be one, and that doesn't ruin it. But like, nope, wasn't, because I think even with you, she looks surprised when it works. And I literally was just like, she's already been acting like these witches are below her. So my brain even kind of was like, oh, she was surprised it actually worked with these witches.
You rationalize it. You for sure rationalize it. And there's a couple of other things that later you find out is that, like, so at first it doesn't work. And she starts berating the other witches. And I watched it and was like, well, that's not nice. You know, like I did not see it
that's
as
what confirms that belief. You're right.
Right. And like, I did not see it as the clue that it will turn out to be later of to what's actually happening. I was just like, what a strange, like, even I tagged it in my brain. I was like, that's a really strange reaction. I wonder why she's doing that. Why does she need to put these witches down? But then you move so swiftly onto the road that you sort of are like, it's there, but I didn't get it. You know?
Yeah, and one of the witches is like, you're just trying to make me angry so you'll get my power. And I was like, oh, okay, cool,
right,
whatever.
Exactly. That's I think you're right. And I think if we're looking at this as a craft level, I think you've pointed out some really important things, which is that you have multiple layers of reveals, right? We have who is Teen, who put the sigil on him, what's happening with these women on the coven on the road, like how are they getting their powers back? Are they going to get their powers back? There's all these things that you're watching for, that you're getting these reveals to, that keep you from looking at the, like, your brain is already processing these other things, so you're not looking for the big reveal. And and I think you're right, like the giving us a reason for why Agatha would be doing that in that moment doesn't make you look for the deeper truth of it, which is like connected, right? She is trying to make her mad, to blast her with her power so that she can get that's how Agatha has powers. She steals it from other witches. But you don't look for the thing that it actually is, because you're sort of like, oh, I think it's this thing.
Yeah. And you and I had a conversation via text when I was in the last like 3 episodes. I was texting you like all caps for like 2 hours. But I was like, with Teen, I was like, because I wasn't even thinking he was going to be related to WandaVision, it was like my brain just wasn't even... It was like the fact that we had no idea about that made it even more like you're not looking to understand things. And I saw this was in a subreddit, and I was like, this explains it really well. It's this person was saying, like, I didn't see anyone in here who predicted this. Instead, we were all focused on who was Teen. Is he Nicholas Scratch? Who is Nicholas Scratch? Who is Rio?
Yes.
Were Rio and Agatha on the road together? What's their backstory? And they're like, it was the first time that those were kind of used as red herrings, because they make us think those are the central questions of the show. And then when they were resolved, there wouldn't be any twists. And instead, those were not the important questions, but like they'd given us so many to chew on.
Yes.
That like my brain just wasn't even going in another direction. And the other cool thing that you see once they get on the road is like each challenge kind of takes place in a house or a building. Like there are these structures where each one takes place, and their outfits change, and it's like they're in another century or maybe a TV subgenre as well. And I remember even texting you, like when I'd first started it, I was like, I love that they still did this part from WandaVision because it's fun and I love this. And I love seeing different genres and making the actresses look different. And I saw someone in the subreddit that was like, we were literally all like, oh, this is just kind of hacky. They just wanted to keep using the WandaVision stuff. And none of us were like, is this a hex?
Totally. I am obsessed with that part of the show. And that was what was so satisfying to me before I knew the reveals. I loved the idea very quickly, because we all understand this in our cultural lexicon. You're like, oh, the Witch's Road, Yellow Brick Road. It's like the dark inverted side of the Yellow Brick Road, right? Dorothy's on a quest on the Yellow Brick Road, trying to get to Oz, trying to get back home. This is the witch's side of it. It's the darker side of it. And I was like, what a cool, innovative thing. But it's not just a cool, innovative thing. They're actually they're using our knowledge of these sort of cultural touchstones to hide what the Witch's Road actually is, which is exactly that. It is a projection that teen has created. Sorry, I'm spoiling it. We're 26 minutes in.
We've been talking about the road not being real.
I know. So you find out that he is Wanda Maximoff's son. And like WandaVision, in which she created this whole projected reality that people lived in, that were different TV shows because those were her cultural touch points, he has created a version of the road that is about his understanding of what witches are. And it is our understanding of what witches are. So at times it's a little trite, or at times you're very much like, oh, it's the Wizard of Oz. But that's because we're all in his brain. My brain blew when I figured that out. It was amazing. And I did not figure it out ahead of the show. It was when they revealed it to me that I was like, what? You did what?
Wait, what? Yeah. No, and like the episode, I think it's Patty's character's episode, when they are all even. I know that whole episode though. I loved her character so much.
Me too. We're gonna have to talk about that episode in detail.
To have her displaced in time was so creative.
Yes.
But they're all dressed up like different witches in that one too. So we have, I think Agatha's even
she's the Wicked Witch of the West. Yeah.
Yeah. Which one? I can only think of Glinda.
Elphaba.
Good Lord. Then even when I was watching, I was like, this is so cool. They're just like playing with the tropes and like what we think of witches. Like, didn't even go past that thought.
Same. It was amazing. And you're right. They it's like so presumably a lot of people who watched Agatha All Along watched WandaVision. And so you understand the structure of what that show is doing. And it is amazing that they're doing it to us again. That you would have seen it, you would know it, and you still miss it even as we they do make the reveal earlier than that the teen is actually Billy Maximoff, that he had been born somebody else, but when Billy dies, when WandaVision splits apart, his soul goes into this body. But I still didn't see that the projection of the road. But then if you go back and watch it, Catherine Hahn does see it, and that was one of the questions I think of the show. Like you say, she feels this closeness and this bond to teen. You see it even as she's sort of gruffly pushing it away. And so you sort of think, and even Rio, who's Aubrey Plaza, addresses it very directly, like, he's not your son. But you wonder how much she thinks he might be her son, or is this like a son-like character? But then you discover, she says something later on, like, if you weren't a Maximoff, all of this wouldn't have been so dramatic. Like, she's known from the jump that this is who you are and this is what you're doing. Yeah. And it's so well done.
Yeah, I think that's episode 2 where it kind of ends, where she's like, you're so much like your mother.
Yes.
Still didn't get there.
Because you're like, is she talking about her? Is she talking about it's so interesting.
You're like, who is she talking about? Is it Aubrey's kid? Or Rio's kid? Whatever.
She even tries to say to him at some point, like, don't feel bad about what you've done as a witch. It's what you had to do. And what you understand later is that she realized he's created the road, which kills several of the witches in the coven.
Yes.
Like only Sashir Zameda really makes it out alive. And so even though he didn't kill them, he sort of did. He created the conditions under which they die. And so she's already telling him, like, I know this, you know, don't feel bad about this. I know this. I mean, he should feel bad about it, but
it's okay that he feels bad.
Right. Because he sort of
But then that's that interesting part. So that's like the conversation that they're having in the finale episode when she comes back as like the coolest ghost ever. I don't know if I was about to say ghostess. I don't know if ghost has ginger to it.
I don't know either. Yeah.
But it almost did from what I was saying. But I saw the showrunner. They offered her so much money to do a second season of WandaVision, and she said no. And they did the same thing with this one, and she said no.
Yeah.
And she's like, I write contained series. And like, obviously I'm fine with it because it produces what it produces. But the end does have you kind of like, how corrupt will Billy, now that we are probably just calling him Billy at this point, like how corrupt is he gonna go? Because he is, they like, I think like literally the last line is her saying like, let's go find Tommy. I think Tommy and Billy.
Right, his brother.
Yeah. And so it's like, is he gonna learn from her and start to not care about killing people? And so like that was so compelling, but like she's not gonna continue the story, and I'm like, ugh.
I know, and I sort of get it because I do too. I feel like she threw a lot at the wall here. Like it would be really hard to pull off the sort of twists and reveals that she had here in a second season, and people would want that. So I get it. Like she sort of left it all on the dance floor. And I'm also with you in that I would totally watch another season, and I'm very curious about like their little coven of two.
I guess if Agatha All Along, she didn't consider like a second season of WandaVision, maybe there is a version where like the story's more about him, and maybe we will hear more about him. I guess.
The way that they're all developing IP, I have no doubt there will be another show. It probably just won't be from the same creator, and it'll probably be from Billy's viewpoint, which my understanding is his Marvel character name is Wiccan.
Okay.
For the Marvel heads in the chat. And so maybe they will continue that. I wouldn't be shocked.
When you were talking about Marvel stuff, the other thing that I like wrote down after I'd watched it, when we see Team, like his episode that explains his backstory, essentially, when he kind of like comes to in the back of the car after a car accident, when the whole WandaVision, whatever that big red explosion of her was.
Yes.
He literally is like, he wakes up screaming the name Tommy. And so there is a part of me where I was like, maybe if I had just watched WandaVision and had remembered the names, maybe I would have guessed it, or would have at least guessed that he was her son. But like, I didn't remember her kids' names. I watched WandaVision when it came out, like during the pandemic, like it feels like 4 years ago that I watched it, I think.
For sure.
So it wasn't in my mind, but I was like, I do kind of what you're saying. Like, if you were really into Marvel, maybe that one would have been easier to catch, but I was glad that I did it in this case.
I was too. And even with all of that, that was almost sort of the least interesting mystery to me. All respect to Teen, but like, you know, finding out who he was not why I was watching the show. It was like an interesting thing keeping us going, but I was more interested in Agatha and the witches and the dark side of the witches road. And I think there's something in here too, if we're looking at it from a writerly standpoint. I really loved, I know we kind of said this earlier, I loved how clearly there was so much love and affection for like the Wizard of Oz. And again, looking up, the screenwriter was talking, or the showrunner was talking about other influences were like Labyrinth and Dark Crystal. And it reminded me too of this movie that I loved from the 1980s called Return to Oz. Have you seen this?
I've heard about it though.
Well, you're going to hear about it more.
Not enough that I remember what it's about.
It is a sequel to Wizard of Oz, done many years later in the 80s, I believe by Frank Oz, which is like a strange thing. But it was a children's movie with Fairuza Balk, who you may or may not know the name, but you would definitely know the face. Yes, she was in like The Craft, and she's like a little kid in it. So it's a continuation of the Oz stories, right? From like the multiple books that Frank L. Baum wrote. And it is so dark. It is from when they made movies in the 80s for children where they were like, we're going to fuck some kids up. And I was here for it.
Kitty Bang Bang is like low-key terrifying.
Yes. A bunch of them. I mean, Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, all of those are very scary. This one starts with Dorothy can't stop talking about her experience in Oz. And basically like Auntie M is like, we're not having it anymore. So she takes her to a mental hospital where she's going to be lobotomized. And then she like breaks free of it. There's like a storm and a little girl helps her and they like get out and they like get into a river and presumably the little girl drowns, although you find out differently. She's actually somebody from Oz. And she goes back into Oz. Oz has undergone a fascist takeover and it is there's like, it's like a scary Wizard of Oz. Highly recommend. And I love it. And I watched that all the time as a kid and then like later watched it as an adult and was like, so much of my creativity actually comes from this movie and I didn't realize it.
But that's cool.
But the thing that I loved about Agatha was it felt like I could feel the way that these writers were paying homage to their favorite things. And it just made me think about how much fun it is to do that in our own work, to like take the strange little things that obsessed us as children and like leave it in there. And they do such a good job of that, of like, what is the dark side of the yellow brick road and how do we make it look? And like one of the challenges is like, looks like basically a nice house in a, like, what do they call it? Basically like those cookie cutter houses, you know what I'm talking about? Like, and they're really nice in the stuff, but they're basically like model houses where they're all like look the same. And like, how do we, you're there and they're drinking wine and then the wine is poisoned and all these, it was so fun. And it made me think about what are ways that I can have like more fun with my own weird obsessions in my writing, you know?
Yes. Is what makes it so many things stand out is like when you like dive into that, because then it's not as like formulaic and like it's kind of like I think I've said it before on some podcast at some point, but it's like when it's fun to talk to someone who's so excited about something that you feel excited about it, even though you didn't care about it until they started talking about it. It's like that feeling. Or you mentioned like when you can tell that an author was having fun writing a book. It's like those things.
Totally. So we should all find ways to have more fun.
God, yes, please.
And also everybody should watch Return to Oz so that I can talk to you about it and we can talk. There's one character who's like a big baddie and she's this beautiful woman and she lives in a hall of like, she lives in a palace and she has different heads that she tries on and takes off that she's like collected from women. So it's like her wardrobe is heads. So she'll be like, today I feel like this. And she'll like put on this head and like, I don't know if it did bad things to me as a child emotionally. I'm sure it didn't, but like I'm telling you, like I think like this movie is where my creativity comes from.
Well, I definitely need to watch it. Oh my gosh, I just found like an image of her.
It's crazy. It's so good. Yeah,
that's creepy, especially in a fascist sense.
Whew. Yeah,
boy.
Yeah,
that's like, what was that just reminding me of? Oh, well. Reminds me of how George Washington had a full set of slave teeth. So, yeah.
You're so right. And I love that that's like where we are in America too, where it's like, oh, right. The horror's here. Got it. Yes.
It's still here.
It's still here.
Also, little teeny tiny side note that I also will not go any further on. But the fact that amidst, I mean, this is going to come out in a few days, so it's not going to feel like old news, but amidst all this trade war and tariffs with China, some interviewer asked some Chinese official, like, what are you going to do if the Americans like stop buying your goods though? And they said, we've been around for 5,000 years. I think we'll be around for 5,000 more. And I was like, fuck yeah. That was the best response ever.
100%. And so I was lucky enough to get to go to China
Oh, nice.
about maybe 8 years ago. And I will tell you, when I was there, I was like, we think we're the superpower and we're not. It is
No.
already China. That is my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
Based
Well,
on,
even like well, Crazy Rich Asians wasn't necessarily that, but it's like I'm becoming more and more aware of how much I was watching a really good TikTok about the way that we've negatively stigmatized the term made in China
yeah.
to sound like we say it when we're trying to say like it's cheap.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, they make everything,
Everything.
but like propaganda, I will call it propaganda and cultural whatever. We've decided like, oh, made in China. That's like how we say something's cheap. No, that's not truth.
No, totally. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. That's a
So
whole other podcast we could talk about, but there's plenty to say there. You're right.
yes, we'll go back to Oz slash the
Agatha.
road that doesn't exist in reality.
Should we talk about the Patty Lupone of it all?
Yes.
That was my favorite episode. It's the episode that I've rewatched the most. Actually, so I say it's my favorite episode, and I would say it is my favorite episode, but there's nothing compares to the last two episodes where you get the big reveal. Like, to me, those are and the fact that, so it's the penultimate episode, you find out that the road isn't real. It's all been a projection of Billy / Teen / Wiccan. And that was crazy. And then I'm like, how do they do another episode after that? And then what we find out in that episode is like even crazier. You were texting me and I was trying to be like, don't spoil anything.
I know, you were like, are you completely done? And I was like, no.
And I was like, okay, then we're not going to talk yet about it because okay, I said we'll talk about the Patty Lupone, but maybe we should just talk about the end really fast, which is
that's fine too.
The reveal that the road started, the Ballad of the Road started because Catherine Hahn's character, Agatha, I'm sorry, for a minute I forgot what her name was. Agatha has a son, Nicholas Scratch, and they are kind of, Agatha can't have a coven because she steals all of the power from the coven. She's been cast out. She's being chased by the seven throughout the show, which are like the descendants of the coven that she killed, which included her mother. So it's just the two of them against the world. And they have created this ballad that they sing to each other that he has created as they go. And he's sickly. He's supposed to die at birth, but she basically begs Rio, who is death, for more life for him. And she's like, he's not going to live forever, but I can give you a little bit more time. It's so heartbreaking.
It's so sad.
So they have created the road and they're like stealing power from people and he doesn't want to. He's a little boy and he sees it's wrong. And
she's using him as like people think he's innocent and like he leads them back to her. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the only day that they don't do that is the sense you sort of get. He does die that night and she's devastated. And so she takes, the only thing left for her now is like pursuit of power, pursuit of witchcraft. So she takes the Ballad of the Road that people have heard them sing kind of across the countryside and promotes herself as, I'm the only survivor of the road. I can take you to the road. We'll sing the ballad together, and uses that to provoke these other witches to attack her and steal their power. And she is in fact a con artist / serial killer of witches. It's amazing.
And it's when it falls in that, and then that's the first time you realize what was happening when she tried to summon the road with them. And now you know what. Now you know why she was actually surprised that it didn't work. But then you also realize like why she was trying to get them angry, because that was actually her whole intent the entire time during that episode, was to do that same thing to them.
Right. She was not here. She was not going to take the road because she herself wants to go on any sort of quest. She's looking for power. She has lost her power and she wants it back. And she is also in this like queer dance of romance and death with Death, the character who is Death. And part of the reason you get the sense that Death like loves her is because she kills so many people. There's like this sort of relationship there. It's so interesting and wonderful to pick apart, and like what a reveal. That was like, because all along you've been hearing like, oh, you're a killer, you're all these bad things. And you're like, well, I don't think Agatha's good, but I didn't, you don't really understand the power of the backstory. And when you finally get it, it felt so earned and so mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. And I think the other reason that I tended toward being sympathetic to her before we know all of this is we do also know that her mom turned on her within their coven, and she was about to be burned at the stake. And that was like the first, I think, we don't know for sure if anything happened before then, but I at least get the feeling that was the first time that she did that, like took so much power from these other witches and killed them. And so many things are happening in my brain and my heart right now. I jokingly told you, I was like, my funny take on this show is mother wounds are a bitch.
And you're not wrong. You are not wrong.
Because we see it with Agatha, and then we see it with her son, who doesn't want to be doing the stuff she's making him do. And then Billy is deeply wounded by what his mom did. Like, there is, I love that it's a female-centered show, and it also still very much focuses on like, not all women are perfect either. Like that's not the version that it was going for. So I think before we knew that she is just like a serial witch killer, which maybe this is how I could convince Gear to watch it, but then it would ruin it for him.
I know, right? That's the thing is I'm like, you can't tell people, but I got to the end of it and I was like, it's a crime show. It's like an anti-heroine, like good for her, like not good for her because she's killing innocent witches, but like it is like a female serial killer show. And
which makes it even cooler that it started off in the procedural, really bad procedural format or whatever. Yeah. So you kind of, so I'm kind of like, did she just have some wounds around that time, and then rumors maybe circulated or whatever? Like we don't know until we know.
Right.
And then even then, so like, I had a couple other questions. Like, did she and Death, did they know each other before she had the kid? They kind of seemed like they were familiar with each other.
I think so.
Maybe that is pointing to her doing it.
Yeah. But you're right. You don't get a whole lot of backstory about her and Rio's clear love affair, and which I actually liked. I liked that it wasn't like fully one-to-one developed, and so you do have these questions that are kind of interesting, which is like. Were they dating? Can you date death, or like is it this dance because Agatha is a serial killer, so she's offering Death all these bodies? Like what is the affair that's happened?
So that doesn't totally get resolved, but and we also don't know who the father is. That was something too where I was like, are we going to learn about how she got pregnant? Because that episode pretty much I think starts up with her very pregnant and about to just give birth in the woods. And then that's when Rio shows up and she's like, no. And so even at that point, I'm like, is our sympathetic way into her supposed to be like, she wanted this kid so badly, like clearly she did, or she wouldn't have asked. If she didn't want it, she would have been selfish and not had it, I think we can be sure of. So
100%.
I think she really wanted Nicholas. And then, so then there's a version of my brain that's like, okay, so was knowing that his short life and the fact that he would die still somewhat soon, is that what made her obsessed with accumulating all of the power that she possibly can? And so then again, I'm wading through the mother issues of it all. So like, is it like she was so hurt by her mom, obviously. Yeah. And is this like an overcorrection where she's like, I will protect my child. They will never be in that position. I'll have so much power. But then you keep watching and you're like, no, I think she just likes power for the sake of power. So you don't feel as bad anymore at all.
I think so too. And the show also leaves it unclear. I think there's a reading of this, but the show doesn't come down fully on the side of like, how much of her, like, has she is part of what she's negotiated with Death for more time, that like, as long as she keeps killing witches, Nicholas will live. Like they do not ever explicitly tell us that, except that the time that we see that they don't kill witches is the day he dies. And so there is this sort of like, and I like that they don't fully say that that's that, because that would be like such a like pat explanation of like why Agatha's doing what she's doing. And I don't think that that's as interesting as like leaving it open-ended, but it is an open-ended question of like, is part of the reason she gets, as Rio calls it, special treatment because she's offering other people in his place.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so there's that. Like, is it because in her mind she's actually kind of trying to be a better mom than her mom? But the other thing that I was thinking about, which actually ties into one of our White Lotus conversations about female friendships that we had, is like the mother wound, especially to a daughter, can define the relationships you'll have with women for the rest of your life if you don't examine it, is where I'm headed with that. And I used to be, it's interesting. I've been reflecting on a lot of things lately that were certain ways in my 20s and my childhood. So that's why it's taking so long for me to get these thoughts out too. But I used to be more fearful of women than I am now because of my first bully was my mom. So from very early on. And so the other thing I was kind of seeing in all of that too is like her model of femaleness ended with her relationship with her mom ends with her getting burned at the stake.
Yeah.
And then her just like having to like do something really drastic just to survive herself. And it's like, I mean, there wasn't therapy back in like, it's like in medieval times is like where we kind of start the story with her. But I feel like it still like shows like when you have unobserved wounds, or you have wounds that you just don't want to look at, or you just want to like keep moving and like, whatever, I'll just keep going, whatever, it still can taint your relationships with other people. And so in some ways, is it like, she was like, well, my mom thought I was expendable.
Yeah.
Like, women are expendable and women are enemies, and I need to take their power so they don't take my power. Like, It feels like there's like all of this like deep mother wound stuff in it, even that way.
I think you're totally right. And like, you're right. The like last moment they have when they're alive is her mom's like willing to burn her at the stake. But then we see her ghost in one of the episodes, and her ghost says some like incredibly nasty things, to the point where the other women in the coven that are traveling on the road with her, who are not really fans of Agatha, even they are like, Jesus, like that's a bit much. Yes. Her mom says something like, I should have strangled you to death the second you left my body. And everybody's like, like, oh, okay. And it like directly leads to somebody dying because they try to protect her. But I'm totally with you. I think that there's an interesting thing. And I think it even goes back to the Marvel moment of like, Agatha's power is that she takes power from other women, essentially. And it's, I mean, I guess there are male witches, but we don't see them in this particular, like, I guess we see Billy as it's whatever. Yeah. There's not a lot of, we're more focused in a world of women. And it's interesting because you're right. I'm sure that trope kind of came maybe from a misogynistic place when it was first written in the Marvel universe. But the way that the show grapples with it is, I think your reading is like the right one, is more of this, like, also mother wound is like, if Agatha was born with this power, she kind of can't, that's what it is. And how do you deal with it and control it? And, you know, I don't know. It's so interesting.
Yeah. And then her losing her kid, obviously. And then she's like, fuck it all.
And we do see a moment, and I feel like this is actually like, so you're right. You tell us when we talked about, she takes the kiss of death and she doesn't let Teen die, although there is legitimately a second where you think she's going to. But I almost think the more triumphant, like, quote unquote, sacrifice or moment before that is she gives Billy some of her, or she takes some of the power from Billy, but she's able to stop it before it kills him.
She does.
You can see that there's a moment where she's like,
and I couldn't tell if she was gonna stop.
Which way it was gonna go, and she finally decides to like make the choice of like, I'll take this power, but I won't take it all.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And then Billy has been estranged from his mom, essentially, and he's even just trying to find his brother. I'm sure he would love to reconnect with Wanda as well. And then we're also like thinking so much about this Nicholas that we keep hearing about. We're like, what happened? It almost like it in some ways you think she like did something terrible, like traded him for more power.
And that's like the rumor, right? Everybody seems to think that she killed her son for more power.
More
She
power.
did something, and that's kind of like what you're thinking the first part of it. And it's so sad because it is not the truth. And like he dies from like something very ordinary. He's just sick, and she can't protect him.
I know. And he did. Poor Nicholas too.
I know.
He didn't even want to do it.
I know.
It's like that part reminded me of Stone Cold Fox. How well Rachel Collar Croft really like told the stories of like being a child and having your parent be like, no, this is what we do, go do it.
Totally.
You're like, okay.
Totally. I do love that book too. Yeah. And it what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. It's still
so many trains of thought.
I know, so many trains of thought. There was nope, I've lost it. It'll come back.
Yeah. Well, and we kind of talked about it earlier, but it makes sense in this context too, since we're talking about Nicholas. But the way the song developed, like in some way, so I saw this is another subreddit comment that I was like, this is exactly what's cool about it. But it said I loved that they showed the evolution of singing for fun to the creation of a song to propagate rumors to help Agatha, and then eventually that song is recorded as a pop song by a witch. Like the evolution of it is so wild too, because like it also seems like she kind of makes it up to help him be like, we're going on a fun adventure. So it's even like writing something to hide the reality of the darkness, and then we find out the song is like even more hiding reality and like using for a dark reason, but then it turns into a pop song even.
Totally. And the pop song, and so there's like two to piggyback off that, two different things that I was thinking of. So one, every time Agatha is singing it and using it to kill people, she also has this really visceral reminder of her son there, right? And so it's this really interesting thing of like, she's singing it, this thing that she's created with her son, and she's also using it to kill women. And it almost feels like she's using it to like hurt herself too, as she's hurting other people, that there's something in there of like, this is, you're keeping his memory alive sort of, but in a way that he would never want. And like this sort of crazy thing. Then there's also, you're right, the Lorna, one of the witches that we meet, her mother is Lorna. I can't remember if Lorna is the mom or if she's the daughter.
I can't remember either.
I think Lorna might be the mom, Lorna Wu and Alice Wu.
I think you're right, Alice, I think.
So Lorna is like the Stevie Nicks of witches and has like recorded a version of the ballad that honestly absolutely slaps. I have listened to it outside of the show too. And you find out, and so it's like, that's how everyone knows the ballad and it's so popular. But you also find out that what she has done is she has coded it as a protection song. So that as long as everybody is singing, as long as someone somewhere sings the ballad, her daughter is safe. So it is also the inverse of like, she's using the ballad as protection for her daughter from this like demon that has haunted their family. And the only way that she can do it is through the ballad. And so the way that they use this one single thing for all of these different meanings and the different way it shifts meanings, you're right. It is so amazingly crafted and well done.
Yeah. And then that's like a version of like loving motherhood.
Yeah, exactly.
Which we don't get anywhere else in the story or in this series specifically.
It's so good.
Yeah. I'm so obsessed.
Yeah.
But Patty's episode.
Yes.
And the nonlinear stuff. So cool that she time hops.
Yeah. So throughout the show, Patti LuPone is, I don't remember which witch she is. She does tarot, but there's like, they have different kinds. There's like the green witch, different. I don't remember which one she is. But she keeps having these random things where she'll say something that's, everybody kind of knows that like she's going to pop off and say something. And you're like, what was that? And what you come to find out when we finally get to her episode is that she does not experience time linearly. She goes back and forth. And it happened to her a lot as a child. And it was very scary to her.
Yeah.
And it happened to her. It's happening more and more as the show goes on, and she thinks it's because she's nearing her death. And
Yeah.
so in that episode, which takes place out of sequence, we
Mm-hmm.
see her kind of grappling with her own mortality. We see her
Yeah.
grappling with what it is to have her power, which is that she can see the future, but she can't always impact it. Like she
Yes.
sees that her coven back in Sicily in like, I don't know, the 1400s or something is going to die. And she tells them,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't stop it. They still die.
Yeah.
And so she has a tremendous amount of guilt and like has like put
Oh,
all this away. And you go back, in that episode, you go back and all of the moments where she'd been like, says this thing that's out of pocket, you see
yeah.
her experience those moments. It is so well put
Yes.
together. And I cry every time at the end.
I
And
know.
it's
Yeah. So
beautiful.
yeah, they're like you're saying that they're in every episode. There's something where at least one thing, if not more, where she just says something, and I say this caringly. It's almost like she has like Tourette's is like what it
Yeah.
feels like. Like it's just like she says something that she can't stop herself from saying, and it has nothing to do with anything, and you're just kind of like okay. But yeah, the fact that then all of the moments from other episodes, not even just that episode, you're like, this is what she was experiencing. This is what she was experiencing. You're like,
Yeah.
oh my god. And that I think the episode starts with her kind of falling in a black void.
Mm-hmm.
And the previous episode had ended with her and the witch who has the most amazing bone structure ever and is like a beauty influencer. I can't think of her name.
I don't remember her. The actress is Sashir Zameda, and I don't remember her
Mhm.
name in the show.
I don't either. But they have right at the end of the episode previously, they've what we kind of think died in some ways because they get like kind of like consumed by dirt mud that has like quicksand vibes. They kind of get like consumed into the ground.
And Teen
So
throws them off the road. It's sort of the reveal
yes.
of Teen's hidden power. He throws them off the road and they like,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. And then it zooms in and he has that crown.
The crown, the Maximoff
we haven't
crown.
even talked about because I don't have all of the notes, but the music choice, the song choices they make at the end of each episode, holy shit.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Because it's like that one starts with "You should see me in a crown," and I was like,
know, it's
"Oh
so
my
good.
god!"
I know, chills.
I was like, "This is amazing." So then when you see her falling in the black void, you kind of think it's just her falling through the ground or whatever, because we kind of know they're like underground now.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fact that at the end it's because she like flips the gravity of the tower and she's actually falling to her death, and I was like, oh my god.
I know, it's incredible. It's incredible. So that moment they're trying to go through, they've gotten to a challenge that is tarot, and she's the tarot master. And so
yeah, it says she's a divination witch.
And so she gets to, they think that she's supposed to be reading for Teen, but she's like, they realize that actually she's supposed to be reading for herself. And so in that moment, she sees her past and all of the future and what's going to come, which is that she's going to fall. She's going to sacrifice herself for the rest of the coven. And interspliced in this, again, all of it taking place out of sequence, which is like brilliant. And at first is like jarring, but then truly is brilliant once you really like connect to the structure of it. You also see that she's speaking, she goes back in time, and she's having conversations with her master, the one who trained her as a divination witch. And she's like, her mentor understands that she's visiting from a different time, and they're sort of talking through what's going to come, and like how I'm gonna cry now, like how it is the end for her, but like that. So she sees that she's going to fall. She makes the choice to reverse the tower. She gets rid of the 7 who have been chasing Agatha. She's giving herself up. Essentially, I think for Teen, that he's the way forward. And then the episode ends with her as a young girl coming to her first lesson. And it, again, is this beautiful moment of like, time is not linear. Things have ended for her, but they never end.
I know. Yeah, when we first get that scene with her, like you're saying, her master, she even says something. She's like, "Oh, it's been a while since I've heard from this version of you." Is like kind of the gist of it. I'm like getting chills saying it too.
I know.
It's like that was like, it's like her only touchstone in her life is like returning to that woman essentially. And what you're saying, like being a kid having that happening to you where you're just getting displaced, and I'm assuming, I don't think like her parents are witches or any type of power necessarily too. So it's like no one understands what's happening to you, and it's just terrifying. So it's cool seeing, because, well, I'm just going to keep going back to mothers. Here I am. But it is kind of like a mother figure that she's essentially going back to. And then to what you were saying about how she sees her coven die, and then she can't do anything about it. And that I just saw something that says she's 450 years old. 450 years later, she still feels guilty about it. That is an example of, that's like a not foil, but that's like the opposite of Agatha too. So we're like also seeing someone who wasn't even actually supposed, she shouldn't feel guilty for the way that they died, but like because she knew it was going to happen, she even feels guilty and she feels bad and she misses them. So we are getting this like much purer character, especially once we get to the end and see what Agatha's been doing. And you're like, oh, you could have handled things differently.
Totally. And she's so scared of her power. And then she gets to have this beautiful moment at the end of that episode where she says, like, I loved being a witch. And you get the sense that like she hadn't felt that for a long time. And that actually, and that's, I think, a thing that they do that's really cool, that I think they don't hit us over the head with the hammer necessarily, but like everyone actually does get what they need out of the road, even though multiple witches die. Although, you know, poor Deborah Jo Rupp, I don't know that she needed anything off of the road,
That's
but
true.
like,
yeah, like Alice gets reconnected with her mom a little bit.
Alice reconnects with her mom. She gets rid of the demon and she dies protecting somebody. She's a protection witch. She dies doing the thing that she was supposed to do. Patti LuPone reconnects with herself. I loved being a witch, and I'm finally like okay with my own mortality, and also the understanding that, like, again, that was, I think, what's so beautiful to me is like she's experiencing time out of order. So for her, even though she dies, it also never ends. Like there's also, she is also still the little girl going for her first, as we all are, right? Like we're all those versions of ourselves. We're every version of ourselves. And I thought that was what was so beautiful. And then Sashir Zameda's character has been bound, we found out, by Agatha, but like by the end she does get her power back and is like, so everybody actually does fulfill the wishes of the road, but not everybody survives the road.
Yeah, that was the cool thing. And it kind of also highlights how everyone grew, except I don't think Agatha grew.
I maybe disagree slightly.
Okay,
I agree with you that they do not, she's not given a redemption arc, and I say thank God. Like I do not want that for her. But I do think she's never had a coven, and she ends in a coven, even though she's dead.
That's true. You're right.
And she ends with teen in a coven of 2. And there is something there that's like, I don't know if it's growth necessary, but she's in a different spot than she was. You know?
You're right. Yeah, it's just the redemption part.
Yes, I agree. No redemption, no standing off her edges, no. But I do think she gets what she needs in a way too.
Yeah,
her own coven.
That's a good point. And
maybe the only reason she can have it is because she's dead now. So like I don't know that Ghost Agatha has the ability to suck out Teen's power.
All the power.
Yeah. So she can actually be in a coven now that she's a ghost, but it's only because she can't do that.
Oh my gosh. Which really, I've been thinking about narcissism and narcissistic abuse just a little bit more for some reasons.
I'm getting that.
Yeah, it's coming up a little bit. But even that is a really powerful allegory for, not even allegory, metaphor for the only way that like hardcore narcissists can even be in a relationship is if they're powerless. Like, or the only way the other people around them are safe is if they are powerless. So that would be an interesting take on that, where it's like Teen's actually safe now because she's powerless.
Yeah, that's and again, it's something I don't think the show makes explicit. Like I don't actually know that I know if Agatha has powers as a ghost,
right?
But that's my sort of reading, is that she can only be she can be in a coven now because she's dead and essentially neutralized, and she can have the thing that she maybe needed, but only now.
Yeah, so fascinating.
Yeah.
I just hope that showrunner does some other stuff in general, because I am
I'm
obsessed
sure
with
she
her
will.
storytelling.
Yeah, I totally agree. Amazing storytelling, amazing ability to like she also in this interview I was reading talked about, you know, she loves things like Fight Club, and I'm like, yeah, I see it. Like this is
Yes.
essentially like a version of Fight Club, sort of, where it's like we've, you know, and so
Mhm.
I'm very interested to see what else comes out.
Yeah. I was seeing something about, what was it? I was reading an article about how there are like so many people who actually don't understand that Fight Club is about toxic masculinity. There are a bunch of men that just like think this is about like badass masculinity, and I'm like, of course they have no media literacy.
I think it's all of that, right? Like it's Fight
Yeah.
Club. I feel like the other one I've been seeing too making the rounds is American Psycho, or like
Same. Yep.
Glengarry Glen Ross, or Wall Street, or any of these things where it's like these were not
Yeah.
actually meant. Even this is another weird one. To me, it is always weird when people have like Gatsby parties. Like, listen, I get it, the aesthetic is
Right.
amazing, but that is like a parable about the dangers of wealth and partying,
Yes.
essentially. So to be
Yes.
like, let's live like Gatsby, it's like you didn't fucking get it, you didn't read it, you know,
Oh
like
my
you go back and
god.
you fail 10th grade, like you didn't
Oh my
pass.
god. This has been happening. I have seen a couple reviews about a book that I really loved called Dead Money. And to me, and I even interviewed the author, you can go listen. So I think my read was correct. This was a satire about Silicon Valley. It is written by someone who was one of the original employees at Airbnb.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
Airbnb. And like, could not feel more like satire to me. And there are reviews that are like, this is disgusting. This is defending bro culture. There's a twist at the end that, like, I really think people, it's not even a twist, it's a good for her moment, in my opinion. And they're like talking about how problematic it is. And I'm like, I think you guys were missing the point.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Which, you
hate
know,
when that happens.
totally. And it's like, it's hard to know sometimes, like from a craft standpoint, was there something that didn't get signposted that people aren't picking up that it's a satire? But also, like, I
Right.
think people can be bad readers. Don't tell anyone.
I know. Well, that's where this came from, is me talking about, like, I'm realizing the media literacy is like, I really started noticing that conversation. I think it was 2 years ago when Ballad of Songs and Snakes, that one came out. And like, don't get me wrong, I understand the thirst traps, and he is very hot if you don't know his character. But I think there really were some people who didn't understand, like, no, he's still a bad dude.
Totally. And I agree. And I mean, I think that's the point, right? Is that like sometimes evil
Mhm.
is seductive and beautiful, and like you still have
Yes.
to say no to it. And like there is a thing, like I actually, this is so funny. I was listening to a podcast episode last week of the podcast Decoder Ring about how the book If You Give a Mouse a Cookie has been like co-opted by like the conservative right to be like, this is why welfare states don't work. And
Yes.
the author is like, no, that wasn't actually what I was saying at all. But then actually, if you get into like, it's a fascinating episode. Not to
Mhm.
direct people away from your podcast, but
No, let's do it.
no, we can listen to multiple
They can
podcasts.
listen after.
Yeah,
Guys can listen after.
exactly. And but I also think there's something to, I don't know. I think it's a complicated interplay sometimes between like authorial intent and what people get out of books. And
Mhm.
it's not that there isn't responsibility on the author, but I also
Mhm.
think sometimes we read things now as
Mhm.
though to read a book is to read someone's manifesto. And I
Yes.
don't think that that's what most authors are doing a lot of the
Mm-mm.
time. I
I
think
don't
they
think
are
so
trying
either.
to show you a world and you get to have your own complicated critical
Mhm.
thoughts about it, but it's not them saying like Fight Club is not well, I can't remember who wrote, is it Polaniak who wrote Fight Club? I don't know that it's him saying uh this is the good way to be, you know, or
No.
like
Yeah, it's fine.
American Psycho, which is Bret Easton Ellis, is I really don't think is him saying
No.
this is what good masculinity is.
No.
Even though he's a problematic person in and of himself, but we'll leave that to the side. But you
Yes.
know what I mean? Like and I think that there's sometimes that happens with readings that I think is not always the best reading of a text, to be like, what they're saying is what the author believes.
Yeah. I think as you were saying that, sometimes it's like, if it's not so outlandish and horror-ish and so thrillerish and so evil, I think that's sometimes what then people are merging together what an author writes with their literal personality.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I think of how, for whatever reason, I think because I just edited an episode where we were talking about it, Jennifer Hillier is coming to mind. We were specifically talking about Jar of Hearts because, of course we were.
Yeah. Great book.
But if anyone has read that, like the last 20%, the reveals are extremely dark, and like the very climactic event is both shocking from like a twist and plot perspective, and also like egregiously terrible what is trying to occur. And so she's an author that we often talk about, where we're like, thriller writers are just so freaking nice to talk to. They're so sweet. And then they write these crazy books. And I don't think any of us think that Jennifer Hillier is like any of her characters, because her books are so dark. And so I think maybe sometimes it's easier when it's like so dark and so outlandish.
Yeah.
Maybe. And then maybe with like this book that I'm talking about, Dead Money, is just because that's the one I brought up. It's just taking place in like modern times. There's nothing gory. There's no horror. It's taking place in Silicon Valley that we've all heard about. So sometimes I think you almost benefit from writing, not benefit, but in this use case that we're talking about, people separate the author more when it's totally outlandish versus when it's like kind of in real time, which is what a lot of satire are. Maybe people miss it because it's not so like over the top.
Totally. And I think that there's not, it's not that there's not critiques to be had of like, is this, first of all, is it positioned in the marketplace by her marketing team as satire correctly? Right. Is it, you know, like, I think that I haven't read Dead Money, so I can't speak to that example, but I think that there are ways that maybe like satire is hard because you are like critiquing something, and if it's not clear that you're doing that, that can be a problem. So I'm not saying that there's no authorial responsibility, but I do think I see sometimes this sort of flattening of like, we take a text and we don't consider certain traditions it might be in, or different things, as you might just say like, I think this is what the author believes, and it's like, well, I don't know that I think that's true, you know?
Right. I agree. Yeah, like Amina Akhtar is one of my favorites, and she even jokingly is like, I don't even think I write satire. I'm just like writing funny shit about what I've experienced in the world. But hers is very horror related, so I think it's easier to be like, oh yeah, she's not saying this is okay.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, we ended somewhere else, but
I mean, got a lot in about
Agatha brings up a lot of these similar feelings as a character.
Yeah,
I don't think she's satire, but you know what I mean.
No, I agree. I don't think she's satire at all, but I think she lives in a space that it, like, there was something about it, and we've already kind of covered it, but there was something about it that was so refreshing to me, that she was a villain withoat a redemption arc, that she, but also without being so mustache twirly, you know, like it was, there was something so compelling about that, about like truly not knowing. She could choose to do a good thing, and it's not going to redeem all the bad that she's done, but like it makes her really, you don't know what she's going to do. She's kind of a renegade in that way.
Yeah, she is, which is why we still love her a little bit. We love her as a character. I don't know that I'd want to be her friend.
No,
which is actually, that was the same conversation we had about the Martha Stewart documentary.
Totally.
I was texting you. I was like, I don't know that she would be the best friend, but something about her existing in the world the way she does makes me happy that women can exist that way.
Totally. I totally agree. I think that is another like cultural conversation to be like, the whole unlikable women bit of it, and like how
Mm-hmm.
unlikable can you be? Like, to me, I agree with you, Agatha. I don't need to be your friend, Agatha
Mm-hmm.
or Martha Stewart, but are they compelling? And like that's
Mm-hmm.
what's I care about
Yes.
in like media I consume, is not if I feel like I want to go grab lunch with them. It's like, do I want to watch what they're doing? Am I fascinated by them? And
Yes.
yes, I absolutely am.
Yeah. Me too.
Mm-hmm.
We're here for varieties of women, ranges of
Yes,
women.
we are, and may we all write compelling women, whether or
Yeah.
not they're likable.